Word of mouth marketing for not-for-profit organizations. Welcome to B2M Business Insights podcast. Listen to part 2 of the interview with Alan Casey. Word of mouth marketing for not-for-profit organizations. Welcome to episode 74 of B2M Business Insights. My name is Simon Fawkes from B2M. It's my great pleasure to introduce Alan Casey, who's the co-founder of Word of Mouth That Works. Alan will be talking about word of mouth marketing for not-for-profit organizations. Thank you, Alan. It's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Simon. It's a pleasure.
Word of mouth marketing, how does this work for the not-for-profits?
So the main thing to stress is that word of mouth is the result of people talking to each other. It's really as simple as that. And what they need are things to talk about. Give them something interesting to talk about and off they go. Look at the ice bucket challenge that we talked about just before the music break. There's no difference for commercial as opposed to not-for-profit. The theory is all the same. It's just the application that varies.
So what does the theory say?
Okay, so what we've done is we've broken the theory down into 5 parts. You've got to identify your advocates and what it is that binds them together. Understand how they experience your products or services. You've got to be an effective listening organisation when they connect with you or give you ideas for feedback. Then involve them in the organisation and in the development of a word of mouth campaign. And finally, and this is the bit that most people miss, don't think that the job is done just because you've had a successful campaign. Word of mouth needs to be ongoing.
That's great. 5 very clear parts. But in more detail, how do the not-for-profits apply this?
So let's start with the first stage. We talked about advocates earlier. The advantage that not-for-profits have is a far broader group of stakeholders from which to find their advocates. We've just started a project here in the UK with Potential Plus UK to create a word-of-mouth campaign to raise the profile of the cause. And we're starting by reviewing all of the stakeholder groups, not only of Potential Plus, but all of the other organisations that also support the cause of higher learning potential children. That's a huge potential advocate pool. And knowing who they are is one thing, but understanding why they love you is another. For a commercial business, this takes work, but for not-for-profits, it's more straightforward. Now, we shouldn't assume, but you have a pretty good idea what it is that binds us all together. It's the purpose, right?
So what do you do with the advocates once you've found them?
The aim of the Word of Mouth That Works course is to create a word of mouth campaign. Now, to do this, you have to understand how your advocates are behaving in the consumption of your products or services. It's not enough just to go, right, I know who they are. I'll send them this ice bucket video to circulate. It's not how it works. You've got to be utterly authentic with these people or all of your efforts will backfire. Once you've understood their experience, you get a really good idea what will work for them when it comes to formulating your campaign ideas, yeah?
So you know who they are and how they think about you. What's next?
The next step is involvement. Again, this is where I think not-for-profits have an advantage, and that's because they're service organisations. The third step is about listening and acting. So it's the feedback mechanisms. And not-for-profits, even if they're under-resourced, are in general good at this. Let me give you a really good commercial example of what I mean here. Zappos is an online shoe retailer who put all of their marketing budget into customer service. They spend nothing on marketing. Their customer service drove word of mouth. And last year, I think it was, Amazon bought Zappos for more than $1 billion US.
Wow.
That's $1 billion of value generated by great service that generates incredible stories that spread by word of mouth. So the third step is about tuning these internal processes.
That's very helpful. I can see how it all comes together. So now you're listening and acting, but what follows?
We describe WOM2 to be like training for a marathon. There's a lot of hard work to be done, but eventually you're ready to run. And that's the next stage. It's where you look at what you've learned and see how you can connect with people, the channels that you use and the topics that you choose to connect with them. And you do this with your most ardent advocates. You involve them in this creativity. And because they're involved, it becomes part of their personal story. It's part of the word of mouth that they create themselves. This was the part that didn't happen in the Ice Bucket Challenge, but I can see how it could have done. And it's the part that can be done by following, as Jonah Berger described, the formula. It's the creativity and the testing of ideas till you find the one that will work. Not because you think it will work, but because your advocates tell you it will. Then you produce your campaign, whatever it is, give it to your advocates and let them run with it.
Okay, so stop there. You said 5 stages. That's 4 so far, isn't it?
Yeah. So the final stage is keeping word of mouth going, not resting on your laurels. The organizations around ALS raised more than $1 billion for the cause, but many were one-off donations and they never repeated anything. It was a one-off. Imagine if they ceased that and it was recurring. So once you've signed people up to talk about you, to share your content, why would you stop? The hard work's been done. So the final stage is about continuous improvement and renewing your topics and content, keeping word of mouth ongoing, making it part of the culture.
So you said a few times that not-for-profits have an advantage in doing word of mouth. Can you please summarize this?
Yeah, sure. I think it starts with their DNA by having a purpose, a cause at their core, and that galvanizes the tribe. You need to know who the storytellers are in the tribe, the advocates. And that's, this is a lot easier to find in a not-for-profit. Once you've found them, they're on board with what you're trying to do already. And because of the broader reach into multiple stakeholder groups, there are more advocates out there. It's then about enlisting them in the creation of materials, of content for the tribe to use when telling their stories. Some small businesses we've worked with have bemoaned the fact that they only have a few advocates. This will never be the case for a not-for-profit.
And so what are the challenges?
I still think it's money and time, but the monetary cost is nowhere near what a traditional or even a digital campaign will cost. But, by reaching out amongst the advocate community to find people who can create content, I don't see why smart not-for-profits can't create word-of-mouth campaigns without spending a cent. And we're definitely not charging them for word of mouth for one NFP, which is our pro bono not-for-profit course.
So what's the next step for charities that want to find out more?
One NFP is free for registered charities. You can find the course on our website, which is www.womtwo.com. That's WOMTWO. Or anyone that's interested can drop me an email at alan@womtwo.com.
Thank you very much, Alan. You've been listening to Alan Casey from Word of Mouth That Works, who's been talking about word of mouth marketing for not-for-profit organizations. B2M Business Insights. On air, online and on demand. Listen to the full podcast now. Episode 74, Word of Mouth Marketing for Not-for-Profit Organizations. Listen to the full podcast episode. Watch other podcast videos. Search all episodes by keyword. Subscribe to our channel.